Hey everyone, here with Hank and ready for our session. I already have him tacked up since he's been doing really well with that, so I'm going to get to moving him around and then putting those pillows on the furthest back area of the saddle possible, and we'll see what reaction we get today.
I decided to do a voiceover today because there was a lot of noises going on around the round pen, so I figured I'd be able to talk to you guys a little bit more clearly just by watching it back and talking over it again. So just like every other day, we're going to warm up with lunging, having him walk and trot and canter, and rewarding him at certain points of relaxation. So right away, initially, we are a little bit more reactive today. Instead of calling him in for a reward, I'm going to push him forward, and I'm really watching his hind end. Now, if I remember correctly, this is the session where I work on pushing him forward through his struggles a little bit more. Because there was one very specific trigger that I'll show you guys eventually. I think it's this video, like I said. If not, it's definitely the next one, where lunging is okay. You can kind of contain it because the goal here is to reward that relaxation. I don't want to teach him to be a little bit sensitive, but I also don't want to let him just like get away with it and not have to work after it. So my method here is just keep pushing him along like regular until he settles down and then reward him when he's relaxed. But anyways, in this video, I figured out one of his biggest triggers is when we're lunging and he's going around and I add a little bit more energy. Okay, so he's not just cantering, but I'm trying to ask him to move out in the canter a little bit. That kind of makes him react. Now, there was a past trauma experience that he had that I don't believe I told you guys about. I believe how it went, and Megan, if you're watching this, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. He was in a barn with an inexperienced trainer or person of some sorts, and he was tied up on concrete, getting tacked up, and the lady walked away, and the saddle wasn't completely on yet, and something potentially spooked Hank. I don't know exactly what. Anyways, he ended up in a funky position with the saddle in the concrete barn and slipped or something, and that's what happened there, I do believe. So there is some sort of trauma response that he's giving me, I believe, from remembering that. I don't know if anything ever got wrapped around his back legs of any sorts, but you can tell that's his sensitive body part and area. I think the trickiest part of positive reinforcement is rewarding that relaxation while they're in motion. It's so hard to capture it right away and then be able to bring them in fast enough and truly let them know that that was the correct answer. Yeah, today was his sensitive day. The other thing he's reacting to is when I bring that whip to his hindquarters. He doesn't like the feeling of it behind him. If I touch him with it, he's kind of worries about that. So you can see right there, I'm kind of tossing it with relaxed energy, and that's causing him to kind of tense up quite a bit. So I'm just waiting for that to relax and slow down, and then I'll try to reward him. My other thoughts, which have been cleared, are ulcers, but he has no other reactivities to it other than his tightness, if that makes sense. Like there's no ear pinning, there's no, I guess what I would call like the grumpy discomfort, where he's wanting to like look back at his flank and nip it or anything like that. He's very settled in that sense, and he likes being around people and he's comfortable with that. But there's discomfort definitely within his own body around his hindquarters. So I keep thinking ulcers, but I guess that's been cleared, so we're gonna say it's not that. So then I go to potentially chiropractic, but I also believe that's been covered. And then I think about myofascial, I believe is how it's pronounced, which I've actually had done on Lynx a couple times. And it's not like a massage for a horse, it's releasing specific areas, and it's really helped Lynx. In fact, if any of you guys with Mustangs, or especially gelding Mustangs, Lynx, and I didn't know this obviously, but he's almost 8, and I had this woman come and work on him, and she's like, wow, he has so much scar tissue at his castration area. And I was like, that's weird, because it was like, I don't know, 6 years ago almost, maybe even more than that. And she's had to work on it in 2 different sessions. So that really helped free up his hind end for movement. Not that he was ever doing anything bad, but as far as like how he's moving for dressage and all, that really helped there. So I wonder if that's something that could help release Hank. You can tell he's a little more unfocused on me and nervous today. The best thing to do in a situation like this where your horse is really nervous is to stay really relaxed yourself. If you add to the energy and start chasing them harder or working them up, they're going to lose whatever little trust they have in you and just go into a more panicked state and not necessarily digest anything you're taking in. So a little bit of what I was just working on is pushing him out in that canter. Okay, so like I was saying, one of his triggers is when you keep him moving. And he's pretty good to touch to the flank, like he's not too worried, and like reading his body language up close when I flap the stirrups, every single time he's very relaxed and he knows what's coming. I have one horse in training right now where every time you tap her flank, no matter if you do it 3 or 4 times a day, she twitches her whole entire body. Meanwhile, Hank doesn't even react at all if I'm slightly touching his flank, which is great. That's a really good reaction. Alright, so I just cut the part out of putting the pillows on him, but he is very quiet for it. He just stands still, nice and easy. And I do have them on the furthest back ties right now. Now looking back at this session, I don't know if I would have jumped to the pillows quite yet, because you could see in the, about 8 minutes or so, maybe 7 minutes of lunging and working on all of that saddle and discomfort, I don't believe he truly got comfortable with it. So there was some good moments of it, but I think by the end, there was still a decent mix of good and tight moments. So watching this back, I'm thinking, is he really ready for the pillows on this day? Because the best thing to know is, you may be disappointed in your horse or yourself or something, depending on the day that you're working them. If they're having a tough day, if you're having a tough day, something like that. But really, you have to work with the horse that you have that day. And yes, have expectations and don't be super lenient, but you need to be fair to the horse, and especially one that's a little bit more of a per se problem horse. You need to take that into consideration. So I'm just wondering here if I felt some sort of different energy in person than I'm seeing on screen. So what he starts to do, and I don't remember if it's this video or if it's the next one, but he starts to look into me at certain points while lunging, kind of to get that reassurance that he's doing well, or to potentially stop the work. And now the tricky thing with one kind of using that technique to stop the work is you wonder if it's because they just want to be done and they don't want to move anymore, or they're using that to tell me that they're uncomfortable. You know, that's probably one of the most difficult things to figure out and read with them. Just like when we started the lunging, I'm doing as small rewards as I can. When he's moving forward and looks like he's in a semi-happy and decent mind frame, I'll call him in and reward him. And I feel like I've noticed when he's tracking left, that right pillow bothers him more than the left. And when he's tracking right, he's not nearly as bothered as when he's tracking left. And I've heard recently that I believe it is the right hind flank area-ish is usually more sensitive when they have hindgut ulcers. So I'm still curious about that. Just because I know this horse has a good brain and I love his try, and he's always trying to not hurt me and not be dangerous. He's a very interesting case. Good, so tracking right here looks a lot softer than tracking left. You can tell this video I am working on kind of pushing him a little bit more still. Also, I do apologize for my voice. I am filming this voiceover at 4 a.m. So that's one of those kind of more blind reactions. What I did there when he was walking was I took the stick and string right when he was directly facing the camera, and I brought it up to his hindquarters and touched him. And I don't believe, while he's been in motion before, that I've done that. So that really caught him off guard, and that was one of those triggers his owner was talking about. Things kind of touching his hind end by surprise will cause him to react by kicking out or even bucking sometimes. So that was the first time I saw that reaction. This is definitely probably his roughest day that I've had yet with him. But we got that reaction from him. I'm able to see it, so now I know that it's in there, and I have to figure out a way to work on that, because the desensitizing in motion with the flag, he is very, I guess, able to predict it already. And then moving the stick and string, you'll notice after this, whenever I work on it again, I don't get that same reaction, which means he's already kind of figured that out until, I stop working on it. He kind of forgets about it, and then I do it again. So I may have to do that when I'm working with him from now on. But I have to figure out a good way to accurately work on it. The other thing is, whenever I'm desensitizing him in motion, his go-to is standing still and stopping, because typically a lot of desensitization is done at the halt and the standstill. But I need him to know that he can keep moving forward fluid, not tense up, not slow down, while I'm touching him with that whip behind. So you can really see that inconsistency. Another really important thing to note, I always talk about the energy that you're passing through your body and the tool. And this is one of those exercises where it's crucial that you are not adding any energy to that whip if you are working on desensitizing them to the hind end while in motion. My goal is to catch him semi off guard so I can work on the stick and string touching the hind end. But unfortunately, he's already figured out at this point that's what I'm doing and isn't really reacting to it anymore, so I'm going to switch back to the lunging. For anyone wondering, if I haven't said in a prior video, the pillowcases are just filled with 2 pillows. They're very, very lightweight. So like all these reactions to me just look like some sort of tightness back there, and I don't know exactly what spot to pinpoint it as.
It's okay. It's okay.
Working with him is super tricky because you want to be fair to him because he's very fair to you, and he's the sweetest horse, and he's trying his heart out, and he's just something just isn't completely comfortable to him. Now, I did see some video before he came to me. He did have a little bit of a rest period before he came to me, which was good. But there's also some video of him working, and his reaction to a surcingle was a lot worse and explosive compared to what I've been getting out of him, even compared to this session right here. So now I'm working on that pushing factor, because then this comes a thing if he's under saddle and carrying his rider and they are doing something in the woods and touch a tree branch and he spooks and reacts and bolts. I can't have him going into a bucking fit or anything. I need to somehow teach him to manage his emotions through that anxiety. That was definitely a tougher session for him, so I rewarded at a good point when he relaxed after I pushed him forward, and then I gave him a break because he was starting to work up too much of a sweat, and I, again, am trying to keep things very quiet with this horse. I'm trying to not cause him more stress and just work through those anxieties that he already has. Thank you guys so much for joining me for, I believe this is his 10th session. Hopefully you learned something from it, and I'm sorry I couldn't talk directly on the video this time.